All right, welcome back everyone. Once again, I'm here with Channing Ayers. We're going to be looking at another chart today. Again, this is a chart of an individual who submitted 2 questions for this very purpose, so that we could use it as a teaching example online, as well as answer her questions. So we'll be looking at a Capricorn ascendant, and the 2 questions are: would a career as a professional pilot starting school January 2018 be of benefit to myself and the world? And number 2, will my life experience, happiness and fulfillment be improved by living in foreign lands? So we're going to start looking at the first question: would a career as a professional pilot starting school January 2018 be of benefit to myself and the world? And this is a more complex question than you might think, because number 1, it deals with career. Number 2, it deals with starting school, a new line of education. And number 3, the idea of it being of benefit to myself and to the world. So this is what we're going to be looking at. So once again, welcome, Channing. It's great to have you back.
Hi, Ryan. Thanks.
How's everything going in your neck of the woods, which is really like 2 miles away, right?
Well, we're finally getting some nice weather for the last few days of the summer, so that's been really wonderful.
Good. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me go ahead and pull up the chart here. And there we go. Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. Channing's a lot of fun to talk to. We go out and get sushi every now and then and discuss charts and astrology. So this is one of the reasons why I think we've got decent rapport doing these sorts of things. We meant to have Corey Dowds with us too, but any of you who have tried to get a bunch of astrologers together know that it's also like herding cats. So it's been a little hard to get us all together. So this is why we're just doing it with Channing and I today. But anyway, welcome, Channing. It's wonderful to have you. I know you're going to have some good insights to share here. So when you look at this chart, let's break it down first. When you hear the question, would it be of benefit for me to become a pilot, that career, going to school in 2018, and being of benefit to the world, which part of that question would you like to address first? And just start with your notes if you want.
Okay, well, I mean, I haven't really done a whole lot of airline pilot charts, so that was an interesting one. I had to really sit and think about, okay, what constitutes an airline pilot? Venus being the natural karaka for vehicles, which falls into this person's first house. So that definitely came across as, okay, this person is definitely, there's a potential for being connected with something like vehicles. Mm-hmm. And there's also something interesting about Capricorn when you look at the Gemini descriptions. One of the included descriptions is things in the air, like mm-hmm. birds and things that fly in the air, any aerial being actually. So that piqued my interest a little bit, because I think those things could potentially be connected with something like flying. Mm-hmm. And then you do see this person's ascendant lord and Atmakaraka Saturn coming here into the 9th house. So once again, kind of like our last video, we talked a lot about Rahu and how the influence of Rahu in a certain area of the chart. So this is the house of travel and education. And so I see this person being drawn to travel and drawn to education. But once again, there's a lot of influences here. We've got Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, and Mercury all Rashi aspecting this, which can tend to a lot of different interests, a lot of different new things that this person is learning. I do see this person learning things as a benefit to them, because it's going to help develop that Rahu. It's going to help develop their ascendant lord. It's going to help develop these planets that are included here in the 9th house. It's not always going to necessarily be easy, because look, we've got Saturn and Mars here, which can create a lot of hard work, a lot of having to push through, and Rahu, which adds a little bit of the confusion. So there is a lot of potential here for this person to have benefit learning lots of different things. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, those are all really important. And I think that the main theme that you touched upon there, again, are all of these planets falling within the ninth house of education, which typically puts a strong emphasis on a person being educated in multiple things, which is why they can go to school for a whole host of different things. Like, this is the kind of individual that could go to school to be an engineer, and then go to school to be a pharmacist, and then go to school to be whatever it might be. I have a friend who's this way. She's she's probably in her mid-50s, and she's got at least 6 different degrees. Mm-hmm. And she has a very similar combination to this, where you've got a lot of planets impacting the ninth house. Now, the idea of Capricorn having the focus on things that fly in the air and so on, I think that's very important, especially for someone who's considering a career in being a pilot and whatnot. One of the things I focused on, though, was really the elements of many of these planets. We've got Capricorn, which is an earth sign, and we have Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and Rahu in Virgo, which is also an earth sign. So the idea of the school, the pilot school, I think that might be another step to future explorations. I don't necessarily see that as being the end of it all. I think most of the time this person's going to need to focus on being very grounded, being on the earth, focusing on Virgoan type things, focusing on Jupiterian type things, such as health-related matters, such as educational counseling-related matters. Having this Venus and Moon in angles from each other, and also having Moon and Venus as sign, can show someone, again, like we discussed in the previous video, with a good eye for design. The Moon in the 10th house typically makes a person well-known, and that can make a person somewhat influential with the masses and so on. We see that we've got this Mercury, the ruler of the ninth, going into the 12th. Now, that can speak to things like we're going to get into for success in foreign travels. For someone who's going to be a pilot, it seems that foreign travel would be an ideal situation. But then I go and I look at this 10th cusp, and this 10th cusp falls in Scorpio. And from the 10th cusp, the Lord of the 10th cusp, again, goes into Virgo, goes into an earth sign. It's with Rahu, it's with Jupiter, it's with Saturn, which tells me that this person's career, once again, probably has many stages, many interests, and that it is okay for this individual to explore those paths, those careers, which that come up from time to time. Because some people, they want to get in a career and they want to stay that way for the rest of their life. This is not a chart like that. This is a chart where I see the person going from one career to another career and learning quite a bit from each of those experiences. And that's due to that Rahu with all these planets in the ninth house, showing that learning, growth, education, personally, even sharing that with others, is extremely important for this individual as their life path, maybe not necessarily in regards to being able to nail down a specific career, though. So this is a multi-talented individual. One thing I do see when it comes to dashas, she mentioned going to school in January of 2018, and we're going to be coming up in around the end of January, a Jupiter-Mercury Sun dasha. Mm-hmm. So that's going to activate Jupiter in the ninth. That's going to activate the Sun in the 12th. That's going to activate the ninth Lord in the 12th. And the Sun is the 8th Lord with the 9th Lord, right? Sun is 8th Lord, 7, 8, 9. Mercury is the 9th Lord, which can show us that this is a person that should be going into some kind of different training, some kind of different education that's radically different than what they have done in the past. So it's shaking things up for them. So there's a lot of things that do speak to this path for the individual. I know you've got some other important points. We briefly discussed this. But overall, is it going to be the end of the line career-wise? No, I don't see that being the case. But educationally, the way the dashas are playing out, the way Saturn's going to be moving out of this tropical Sagittarius and so on, I think there is support there. So any thoughts or clarification or anything come up for you while I was going over that a little bit?
Well, I would just also maybe counsel this person to be wise about budgeting for their education, just because the 12th house is also expenses, and going into the Jupiter Mercury dasha can also indicate some expenses that are happening
Right.
Through education that may be karmic, inevitable on some level. You have to pay a little bit to learn new things, which is totally worth it. That it may take some time for this person to get some gains in the long run from the education that they invest into, because Saturn's there kind of creating delays in this lineup that's here.
Right.
But I would definitely say that this person has a lot of connections to foreign travel.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the 7th house lord in the 10th, the moon that you were talking about before, that can connect people with foreigners for their career, and travel potentially for their career. There's definitely fortune to some extent in foreign lands, and I think that that may have been our second question that you had asked, but that shows up here as well.
Right.
So I do see travel in this person's future with the Jupiter Mercury dasha that's going on. What else? Oh yeah, Jupiter is the third and the 9th, so that indicates a lot of connection with travel as well. The 3rd house and the 9th house can make someone move around a lot, and just some foreign affairs. The other thing that was interesting is that I was looking at Ernst Wilhelm's recommendations to also check out the Shahams in the Varshapal for foreign connections and foreign travel. And so this person has one of the Shahams that is connected with foreign travel, which is the Anya Karma Shaham. That is directly to the degree, when you look at her Varshapal chart, which we don't have up here, but you look at it as a baby, as a 0 age, and you look at the Shahams that may be connected with some of the planets. Ketu here is connected with the Anya Karma, which is a travel Shaham. So while this person isn't in a Ketu dasha, Ketu is ruled by Jupiter. And so this person is in a Jupiter dasha. So there is some type of connection potential that with one of these foreign Shahams. Now we could go into the Varshapal chart, say we were doing a more extensive reading, and start looking at when if these foreign Shahams were connected with different self factors in the Varshapal chart, to kind of get an idea when this person may be embarking more on a foreign travel part. So I just thought that was kind of like a little interesting side note.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of stimulated something in my thought process for some reason. And that was the idea that when we're looking at this chart, we talked about transits in the previous video we did. So during the time this person's thinking of going to pilot school, I don't know how long pilot school takes personally. I don't know a lot about that like you, but one of the things we are going to be seeing is that Saturn will be moving into tropical Capricorn, January of 2018. Saturn is her ascendant lord. So Saturn's going to be coming over her 10th lord. It's going to be bringing a lot more sense of responsibility, a lot more sense of discipline about how one approaches one's life. Within that same time period, Jupiter is going to be crossing over her 11th house and her 10th cusp and her 9th cusp. That's coming up, right? That's October 2017.
Yeah.
So it'll be there for a year, which means it will also be, will it be Rashi aspecting that sign? Yeah. It'll be Rashi aspecting this sign. And then later on, the fall of 2018, Jupiter will be transiting through her 12th house in its own home. So that can also speak to a potential way of managing the debts that might accrue through schooling, but can also give greater opportunities for travel. And if one's going to become a pilot, it seems that right after you conclude that kind of schooling, it would be wonderful to have Jupiter going through your 12th house to help support opportunities for travel and so on.
Sure.
So I think, again, transit-wise, also dasha-wise, we are seeing some indications here towards that. We are going to go into success in foreign lands, but one last thing, if we look at I always like to look at the 10th cusp lord in regards to career as well. And when we scroll through the Avashtas, most of these planets are doing okay when it comes to Avashtas, except for this Mars related to Mercury. And Mercury is starving this Mars down to negative 196.7 points. And one of the things we have to remember about Mars getting starved, the 10th cusp lord getting starved, is that one of the things that can really short circuit a person's direction in life and career is overthinking things, trying to do too much of everything. And so this person has to learn this balance between exploring their multiple interests and then eventually finally saying, after they get so far, looking back over everything that they've done and then saying, okay, this is the path I want to follow from this point forward. So it may be that when that Saturn goes into her ascendant for the next 2.5 to 3 years, beginning January of 2018, that this is really going to be a definitive time for when that person says, all right, what do I want to be doing for the rest of my life, and making that decision. So I see that as a distinct possibility for this person.
That's a good point with the Avashtas too. And it does look like this person does have the potential to balance this out, because while we have negative, we have 556 points of Mercury aspecting Mars, we also have over 500 points when you add up Jupiter and the Sun's potential.
Exactly.
So there's a balance. It starts balancing itself out as these planets mature.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, and as far as transits go, which kind of leads into the other question too, is that this person's going to have Rahu entering into Cancer, into her 7th house, and Ketu going over her ascendant. So there's another indicator of foreign travel and more focus. These are going to be the eclipse periods are going to happen in Cancer and Capricorn for this person. So there's the potential for a lot of shifting in this status in what they've been doing.
Yeah. So, I think that's a wonderful point. What we see here then, it seems, is that, we've talked about all the different possibilities this person could have, but with these transits and with these dashas, I think it might be very likely that this individual in the next, I'm going to say 2 years, really gets a direct sense of what they want to be doing, and how they're going to incorporate everything that they've learned up until this point. And if that is going to pilot school and realizing that is the direction they want to take it, fantastic. Maybe there's going to be other things involved here. Who knows? Maybe they go to pilot school. And again, we don't have any specifics on what kind of pilot they want to be. Maybe they go to pilot school. And maybe they have an interest in things like alternative healing and whatnot. And then maybe what they end up doing is creating a business to fly people to retreat centers in Costa Rica or something like that. It would tie in many of these different interests this person might have. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens in that regard because of that Rahu, Rahu Ketu transit that you just mentioned. Fantastic.
Yeah, the Rahu Ketu is going to have a strong impact because of all of those planets being with Rahu natally. So, and it going through the angles. And I do see that there's a potential for some sort of luxury or vacation type connections with these things, with Venus in the 1st house, and also with having the 9th lord in the 12th once again, and being in the dasha. That really highlights that that there's a strong connection with potential vacations, or like you had said. Yeah.
And the other point you mentioned about Mars having the support from Sun and Jupiter, I think that's something a lot of astrologers overlook, and in fact I just did as well, so thank you for correcting me on that, is that even though we've got a planet down to negative 196.7, we got to look and see that Jupiter is also delighting, bringing that Mars back up to 800.8, and the Sun's even adding 122.7. So when we see these charts, if your astrologers use the Rashis and the Avashtas table here in Kala, don't always just look at the negative number and say that's it. Check and see, is the planet getting help from other areas? And in this chart, yes, the Sun and Jupiter also helping to bring the balance like Channing mentioned. Let's go ahead and segue over to the idea of foreign, let's see, what was the question here? Will my life experience be improved by living in foreign lands? Okay. So we've already discussed that there's a lot of this emphasis already apparent. So just humor us one more time, Channing, and take us through the ideas that you see here that speak to foreign travel and foreign lands.
Well, loaded 9th house, Rahu in the 9th house, Amakarika, ascendant in the ninth house. That's the travel house. The ninth house lord going into the 12th. The ninth house is considered the house of fortune. So when you have the house of fortune going into the 12th house, there's potential for that fortune to manifest in faraway places or in 12th house kinds of places. Now, this can also be places where people are tucked away. So it kind of connects with that idea of healing and vacations and that kind of thing. But that there's a potential for that fortune to come in through the 12th house.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, if we look, seeing that the person's going to be going into a Jupiter K2 cycle in 2019, and Jupiter rules the 12th house. Jupiter also rules Pisces. Jupiter is ruling over K2, and K2 is in the 12th house, or not 12th house, the 12th sign of Pisces. And K2 is in the 7th from Jupiter. And the 7th from any planet, that relates to faraway lands, which is why, for example, the 7th house and even Libra has an indication for faraway lands and so on. So I think transit-wise and timing-wise, that's also a possibility for this person. So I think really that might be kind of a no-brainer. I mean, there's really nothing that's specifically saying stay in place other than 2 points that I see. Number one, having Capricorn as being an earth sign, number one, and also Herat Makarika in the Navamsha is in Leo, which typically can keep a person closer to their place of birth rather than traveling a lot. So this is a chart where there's indications towards success in travel in foreign lands, and there is a slight anchor, back to place of birth and so on. Any other thoughts on this?
Well, I would say that that when you see something like that, there's a potential still for a lot of travel, but that their roots, they keep returning back to home. So there's a house or there's a home to come to, or there's something that they feel like is actually grounding them back to their original place. But I would also look at the 8th Lord going into the 12th house as well. So there could be some unexpected ups and downs, or some breaks, or, lots of stops and starts, or just paying attention to having the 8th Lord in the 12th house is always like, okay, be smart while you're traveling.
And K2, K2 being in Pisces, that can give a lot of past life issues in foreign lands, in foreign cultures. But we have to remember, when K2 is in Pisces, that shows that we're learning to break our attachment to that. So can someone go to foreign countries, foreign lands, make it regular travel there? Yes, because of past life strengths in that regard. But we also see that Rahu's falling in Virgo, again, another earth sign, which, like what you said, I think that this might indicate more, not necessarily full residence in a foreign land, but the ability to have constant travel. So having a home base, like you mentioned. But again, if she's going to be a pilot, she's going to have a home base. She's going to travel from here to there and so on, but always come back to that home base. So I think that if I was going to recommend this person buying property in a foreign country or so on, I could probably advise that, but I don't necessarily think I would say sell everything here, sell your home here, whatever it might be, and completely invest in a home in a foreign country. I think there needs to be that balance between the two. Maybe like the type of person that spends 6 months, again, maybe in Costa Rica, and then 6 months or whatever it might be back in the States. That's more of what I see with this chart than complete, utter move to another country.
Yeah, and that shows up as well when you look at all the moon and the ascendant being in movable rasis. It moves this person around, so this person may enjoy not even locating in one foreign resident, but maybe that's where the idea of the airline pilot comes in, because it's lots of travel. It's constant travel. It's got, so it keeps you moving around and around.
Right. And this is a very active chart. I mean, we have to remember that hands down when it comes to career, when it comes to place of residence and so on. This is a very active chart, but having such a strong earth element, there does need to be something that grounds the individual, like one home and a particular location and so on. One other thing I do want to address before we conclude for today is the part of the question that deals with, will my life experience happiness/fulfillment be improved? So the happiness fulfillment part. And this is something I want to speak to because it comes up a lot in astrological questions where clients write to me and say, will I be happy if I get a divorce? Will I be happy if I change my career? Will I be happy if I move somewhere else? And I have to be very honest with you that it's very rare that I'm able to say, yes, if you just change this one thing in your life, you will be happy. And when we look at this chart, we do have to see that we've got Saturn and Mars together. That's a very frustrating combination, especially with Rahu, showing a person seeking happiness with that Jupiter there. But they're oftentimes seeking it externally, trying to define it through something changing. And this is a very changeable chart, which makes it worse because since things are changing, since they are meant to do many different things and learn and grow in different ways, they attribute that if they just found that one thing, it would all lock into place. Mm-hmm. But when we see a chart like this with Rahu and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter together, this shows us that even if this person found a wonderful little villa on a beach somewhere and was able to pull that off financially, would they be able to say, now I am fulfilled and happy? I don't think so. I think that this combination would come into play because they have to work it out more psychologically firsthand. So again, I don't know what this person has done in that regard, but if they have worked through things psychologically on their own, then it may be that yes, they'll find happiness in that regard. But happiness and fulfillment are not always dependent on a career or something else. Sometimes we see that in the chart, but mostly happiness and fulfillment is a radically different situation than a specific circumstance. Mm-hmm. So I just want to be very clear that in that regard, that happiness and fulfillment, that's going to come from our inner work. It's not going to come from a specific thing. It is rare to see that happen, although sometimes it does in a person's chart. You have any thoughts on that, Channing?
Well, I mean, we see some good transits coming up too, but at the same time, Saturn is going to be entering into the first house. And so that does signify some hard work. So any changes that this person's making during that time can also have the energy of Saturn. Like, is this, this is hard. So the person's going to be making some choices and some decisions and filtering through the way Saturn likes to do. What am I going to be doing? But that you've still got to understand that with that transit, there's hard work involved. Right. And Saturn going over the Venus, this person's comforts may be reduced to a certain extent as that's going through. And then also what you were speaking to, K2 being in the third house is the house of efforts and the house of courage. And so this person is really going to have to develop new mental constructs, new belief systems, new outlooks. And through things like these experiences, like travel or through faith or learning about other cultures, seeing how other people are addressing their own journeys and learning these things. This is going to really give this person a broader perspective that doesn't have as much to do with their own personal effort, but more expansion.
Good. And I don't know, when you speak, for some reason, it just triggers things in my mind. One of the things that it brought up for me too is seeing this Venus in the ascendant and the moon in the 10th. This does make a person have a great capacity to care and nurture others. So, being involved in a healing profession, which we've discussed, is something different than the pilot thing. That could be a part of it. But the other thing that came to mind, Saturn is very much a planet of believe it or not, helping people who are in need. And having Venus and Moon on angles, that can show a person who's able to bring comfort and supplies. So when we think about this whole pilot idea, I think most people think about, professional airline pilot, but I keep kind of coming back to this idea of, short distance travel, smaller plane, these sorts of things. And it could be the luxury aspect of things, or, maybe this person gets involved in a not a volunteer organization. What do they call it? Like a humanitarian organization, like flying supplies to places of the world that really need them. I think that could be something that would give this person a deep sense of meaning, a deep sense of purpose in the world, and also tap into that Venus and Moon to bring comfort to others while still tying in everything that they've learned, everything that they've done, and pulling in the whole pilot aspect of things and the foreign travel. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, and hopefully this person will let us know just how it all shakes out.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see too with that Rahu influence on all of those planets. It's probably something innovative. It's probably something that's structured in a way that's a little unique.
Right.
In what you'd think. Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and stop sharing that. And I think that was pretty good. So this video will be the third in a series of 5 that we're doing so far. And the 2 that we have coming up next will be, let's see, we've done chart 1, chart 2. So the next one will deal with, again, life purpose and how to improve relationships. And then the final chart we'll be looking at, will I ever be a famous musician? And once more, will I ever live overseas? So I want to thank you again, Channing, for being here today. And I look forward to exploring these other 2 charts with you. So thank you.
See you soon, Ryan. Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Oh, wait, before we go, those of you that would like a session with Channing, you can email her at channing@ashevillevedicastrology.com. Is there anything else you'd like to share about contact information for you, or is that pretty good?
Oh, I think that's great. Emails are great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So channing@ashevillevedicastrology.com. And like many of us astrologers, we're a little bit busy. So if it takes a few days for us to get back to you, please don't worry. Most of the time, 100% of the time, we will get back to you 98% of the time. Okay. All right. Take care.